The miracle zoom, of course, we start with this wide shot, and it begins zooming in, and very shortly after the zoom in, the plane enters the picture. In fact, it's precisely one frame after a big long zoom in. Frame 406 is the end of the zoom in, and the nose of the airplane, as you can see over here, pops into the screen on frame 407. That's a highly unlikely coincidence. And then, of course, the real big showstopper is the nose of the airplane appears to pop out from behind the back of the tower. Now, it is physically impossible that the nose of the airplane actually popped out the back side of the tower. And in fact, the official story is not that the nose of the airplane popped out.
I was going to say, nobody thinks it was the nose of the plane. It's
actually,
it's debris being forced out the other side of the building.
A lot of people live. In fact, anchor Jim Ryan said shortly after watching that, the plane went right through the building, he said.
Yeah, you might conclude that.
And I think that while it is impossible that the nose of the airplane actually came out the side of the building or from behind the building, that is exactly the type of problem that one might have in trying to, and I'll demonstrate here, but actually making a composite to explain how one might have that problem in live compositing.
Yeah, I mean, I want Steve to comment on this more thoroughly, but
well,
just as a guess, why would they, if in fact it's the nose of a composite plane, why would they leave it in?
Because it was shown live. They didn't have time. Here's how I've done it. I start with video of an airplane, and you can see here that I've removed the background from this plane. So I have now just an airplane flying against a transparent background. And to get it to blend in a little bit more, I can adjust some motion blur to make it maybe look like it was moving a little faster and blend it into the background. And here's a shot that I took of some burning twin towers. And if I insert the airplane on top of that, of course, it just looks like it's passing in front of the towers. So in order to get it to appear that it's going behind, I have to make a mask. So it's going to identify in real time. Here I'm adjusting the slider on the mask, and you can see it's removed the sky because it can identify the color and the brightness of that. So I'm going to build this composite in 3 layers. The underneath layer is the unchanged video. Then on top of that is the airplane layer. And the 3rd layer is the towers with the sky removed. So we sandwich these 3 layers together, and voila, it looks like the airplane passes in front of the sky but behind the towers. So we're ready now for our final show. Ta-da, airplane going behind the towers. But you have to be careful. If you let the darn airplane run too long, what happens? The nose pops out of the back side of the mask, and that is exactly what happened on 9/11. Steve?
Ace is absolutely right. If you did a bad composite of the airplane over the towers, you could conceivably have the nose stick out. But the picture contains a fatal flaw for that notion, and I'll show you. What we have here is a tracker tracking on the airplane. And what I did was I told the computer to make a constant velocity track. In other words, the computer is going to move my red outline at a constant velocity. Okay? See, my tracker looks different than Ace's. He's got a slightly different shape. So, the computer is moving my red outline along at a very constant, mathematically perfect velocity. It follows the airplane, and then the tracker moves to the other side of the tower, and look what happens. A real airplane, the nose would have popped out right here.
I see.
Okay, because it's a constant velocity.
No, but
yes, the real airplane, if it were flying along, the nose would have popped out right there on that frame. In fact, some debris pops out way back here on this frame. So the speed with which the debris pops out is totally inconsistent with a composited airplane nose.
No, but you're assuming that the speed of that composited airplane was constant,
yes.
Which there's no reason that it has to be. I suggest that they started with real video of a real airplane that had real camera motion in it, because I've shown the camera motion to be present. And if you begin tracking the airplane with the camera, the apparent velocity of that airplane is going to slow down. And in fact, that's exactly what you you would want to do to slow that airplane down and also perhaps defocus it a little bit so that it can appear to, because the fact that it doesn't slow down much upon supposedly hitting the tower is another problem with these videos. There, a real airplane hitting a real tower, of course, would explode up against the side of it.
No,
but what I would want to do is I would want to slow that fake airplane down at the point where I knew it was going to be in the tower so that I had a greater opportunity to catch it and not have it slip out the layer mask. So there's no reason you can't slow down those frames of a...
In real time there is. Remember,
no, this is a pre-prepared airplane layer.
Your thesis is that they pre-shot the airplane.
Correct.
Fine. And then they composited it in real time.
Correct.
And that they tracked it to the building in real time.
Well, they did a layer mask. They didn't have to do motion tracking on the plane, no.
Well,
absolutely
if they
not.
didn't, then that plane would be squirming and floating around because it would be...
Which leads me exactly to my next point.
But let me just say...
Correct.
that
Exactly
it
right.
would have been squirming and floating around all over.
Yes.
What I've
And
demonstrated
it does.
with this little movie is my outline is a mathematically perfect uniform velocity of what you would have if you had a composited airplane. It would be flying along the sky, and if it, in fact, they lifted in a frame too long and the nose popped out, the nose would pop out when my red outline pops out. You can't stipulate, well, they would have somehow known when to slow down the plane in real time to get just that one little nose pop.
Well, of course they would. They'd know how they were going to frame that shot ahead of time. That would all be set up. They'd know within, you know, some number of pixels, they know they're going to put those towers right in the center of the shot, and they know they want that airplane to stop where that second tower is, and this shot is set up ahead of time.
You did see the camera zoom.
Right.
And somehow they knew in advance where the camera would be pointed and the angle of that zoom. Not at all possible. Not at all possible.
Oh, it's called rehearsing a shot. What are you talking about?
There's another problem here that, again, as a layman, I'm not comparing my expertise in video analysis to either of you gentlemen, certainly not to Steve. If a plane going through the building is going to eject debris from one side, then you're saying we have a plane nose but no debris. In other words, if the plane nose is in by mistake...
I didn't say that.
Well, you've got to have nose and debris. I mean, logically, there would be no nose of the plane. The plane would be chewed up inside the building and you would just have debris. But you can't do without the debris. You've got to either have debris, which is what really happened, or if you want to put the nose of a plane in, you've got to have a nose of a plane followed by debris, but you can't eliminate the debris. The debris has got to be there.
There's real smoke, there's real flame that comes out. All of that stuff is real. But how can it be that debris just happens to take a shape that's indistinguishable from the nose of an airplane?
We're going to have to continue this fascinating discussion on our next show. Incidentally, I'm not being insensitive to the eyewitnesses. I will say a word about them in our next show. So for Ace Baker and Steve Wright, I'm Ronald Wick. We thank you very much for joining us tonight. We hope to see you again when we do our next show.
Hardfire is funded in part by the Libertarian Party of New York. www.ny.lp.org. Catering for the cast and crew of Hardfire is generously provided by Da Vincenzo Restaurant, 256 Prospect Park West, Brooklyn, New York, 11215. 718-369-3590. www.davincenzorestaurant.com.